Hey everybody, we're on the final 3 episodes of season 1 of Ace of the Diamond, and I can't believe it. I started this series over the summer, watching 3 episodes to 4 episodes a week, and then like 5 months later, here we are, ending season 1, which I can't believe that we're already ending season 1, but it's been such an insane journey, and I feel like the show knows it, because we're going like back to the beginning. It's tying so many things back to the beginning of the series about Sawamura, him wanting to be the ace, and it's so sad because the last 2 sets of episodes that we've watched have shown Sawamura at his lowest point as a player and a person, and just having lost his purpose and seeming to lose his drive to become the ace. And when you go back to the very beginning of this series, he was like, I'm going to be the ace and be the strongest. And when he told Katioka, and Katioka had him like throw the ball from one end of the field to the other, and it's like, we're all going back to that. And it's like everything's tying back around at the end of this season. And the third years are leaving, and Miyuki's struggling to be both a catcher and a captain and figure all that out. And in the back of it all, we have Katioka supposedly resigning, and now Yuki's found out, and Ochi is making his move, and it's like all this drama, and it's just frustrating. And I can't believe when I started this series, I was like, oh, it's just going to be a baseball anime. I don't know anything about baseball. It'll be fine. And now this series is literally the Attack on Titan of sports anime, because you think it's just going to be a sports anime, and then by the end of this season, you're sitting there having these discussions and thinking about what these characters are going to do and being like, why are you doing this? And it's just, it puts me on as much edge as Attack on Titan does. And it's just crazy, right? And I'm glad that I'm watching 3 episodes at a time, because I think if I watched this episode by episode, well, 1, it would take me 3 years to get through the entire series, but 2, I think I'd just go crazy week to week, waiting on to see what happens next, because there's so many cliffhangers. And so I feel like with this, the 3 episode format, I like it a lot. And so I know at the beginning of this series, I said I was only going to do 2 episodes per run with seasons 2 and season 3, but I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can do that. I think it's going to have to be 3 episodes. And so it may be 3 episodes, it may be 2. It depends on, each of the other seasons are 50 episodes each, right? 50 or 52. So it may be a little bit different. But before we start, I want to say that there are 3 OVAs. And luckily, Kelsey, thank you, on Patreon, you've sent me a link to watch them. And so it may be, we may be doing like a Titan week only with Ace of the Diamond. So as this episode airs, I think I'm going to watch the 3 OVAs, and maybe on Saturday, the Saturday after this premieres, after Attack on Titan, I'll have the OVAs premiere that Saturday so y'all can see them. And then later on, the following week, we'll start season 2. And I've been told with season 2, the episodes 1 through 3 are just recap. They're just recap. There's not anything new. So I think what I'm going to do for season 2 is watch episodes 1 through 3 on my own time for season 2, the recap ones, and then we'll start with episode 4. And then in the video itself, I'll just say episodes 1 through 3 review, episodes 4 through 6 reaction. So it'll be a lot next week. There'll be a lot of Ace of the Diamond. Ugh. But I'm excited for season 2, but we got to get there first. And as I pulled up the very first thing with episode 73 here, Inheritance, it shows Yuki standing in front of all the third years. So I'm like, he's going to tell them all. He's going to tell them all about Katioka. And it's all going to hit the fan. And I'm not ready for it. Not at all. But what can we do? So yeah, here we are. But let's do this, shall we? I got my tea. I'm ready to go. We are going to start episode 73. Ace of the Diamond, the last set. All right. And we're going to start that episode here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. That felt like a season finale. That could have been a series finale, but thankfully it's not, because I was like, I want to see what they end up doing. But you know, the way that it ended, it all just perfectly rounded out. And if they had ended the series there, I would have been really upset, but I would have been like, okay, fine. But no, oh my God, I needed those last 2 episodes. Episodes 67 through 73 were so rough. And then episodes 74 and 75, it was like, yes. Just bring it back. And, especially episode 75. That was, and it all came full circle. It all came back. Everything Chris taught him from the beginning of the series with Chris's introduction to him teaching Sawamura, to Sawamura having the foot and mouth moment, to all now. It just all came back around. Oh my gosh. That was wonderful. That was the light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, this show's made us suffer through so many episodes. I'm like, if you don't give us something happy by the end of this, I'm so hyped for season 2. I am so hyped. Oh my gosh. We need to, full notes. We need to talk about these episodes. June in this. June, oh my God, my dude. I felt so bad for him because, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that angle, that if Kataoka quits in the fall, he's not going to be there in the spring when June and all them graduate because he's tied to the school, so he'll probably go out and find another job. So it's like, yeah, he won't be there for them. And so, of course, June, the third years feel kind of betrayed because they're like, why are you quitting? Like, we want to see you again. Like, we're going to be studying all this time. And if you tell us you're quitting and you're going to leave, we won't even get to see you at graduation. Like, that's so sad. And that kind of ties to what Miyuki's like, well, if we keep winning, he can't leave us yet. So I hadn't realized that caveat. I didn't realize that if they made it through the fall tournament, went to nationals, he'd have to stay on as a coach for nationals. I didn't realize that. I thought he was just going to quit in the fall regardless of what happened. But if that's the case, then yeah, there's stakes now. It's not a full end-all be-all. There are some stakes to having Kataoka stay. But yeah, and the talk about Chris and his baseball career that's just getting started. I find that funny that Chris is played by Oikawa's voice actor. And there's Oikawa, who's like, my volleyball career is only starting now. And he told Ushijima that in Haikyuu. It's fitting. It's fitting for those characters, I'm just saying. But yeah, Miyuki knowing what's up. Episode 73, them all finding out. That was so hard. And Miyuki kind of getting the impression of what's happening. But he doesn't want to admit anything. And even he doesn't really lie to Zono when Zono confronts him about it in episode 74. He doesn't really lie, but he is like kind of onto what was happening. It's so ironic that Sawamura says the line that we can't look at the past. It's so ironic that he says that because he's right. You know, who needs memories? We can't look back on the past. We have to move forward. But it's funny that Sawamura says that as he's dealing with the yips that are a result of something that's happened in the past, right? So I like that Sawamura was slowly building himself back up to normal in this set of episodes, and we'll talk about that with episode 74 and at the end of this episode. But yeah, I'm glad that Sawamura built himself back up, and by the time we got to episode 75, it feels so good to have our Sunshine Boy back. I'm just gonna say, I was feeling really bad the last couple sets of episodes. But Zono's saying it like it is. Zono being like, Zono just saying it like we gotta keep, what are we gonna do? And telling Miyuki to, step it up as a captain. I like that Kurmochi kind of calls Miyuki out. He's like, man, Zono's being a better captain than you over here, which Kurmochi and Zono are vice captains. But yeah, I like that whenever Miyuki's kind of stumped for words, Zono kind of steps in and he's like, nah, this is how it's going. And the idea of them having the retirement game early so that the third years can bid farewell to they needed this game. They needed it so much. I didn't see this coming, but once it started happening, I'm like, oh, what a perfect way to round out the season, having the third years play one more game against the underclassmen and kind of giving them the farewell gift and saying goodbye to Kataoka this way. All makes sense. But them having faith in Kataoka, like the idea that and here's the thing, the idea from Yuki that they have faith in Kataoka and his coaching ability and the decisions that he's made with them the last several years, like that idea, and that they've been so happy with Kataoka, and that this isn't just a farewell game for the underclassmen, it's to give Kataoka something to show all that they've learned from him. And I find it interesting, his double statement there. Ochiai, I'm glad he was quiet this set of episodes, because he really frustrated me in the last set with his strategy of being slimy. And so I'm glad he didn't say much this episode. He just kind of sat back and observed, and he got to see Sawamura pitching well. I'm glad he got to see that, even though he wasn't fully on his A game. I'm glad he got to see Sawamura like that. But he says two different strategies. And so the first thing he says, not strategies, but the first thing he says is he doesn't like strong-willed players. I'm like, wow, gee, you're coaching for the wrong team. Because this whole team is filled with strong-willed players, like from top to bottom. Like, they're so strong-willed. Even Tojo, and we'll talk about Tojo. But Ochiai saying that reminded me of the coach for Maki's team. I was trying to think of the team that was playing. It was for Maki's team. His statement about not liking strong-willed players reminds me of the coach from Maki's team back earlier in the season, who wanted to just dictate to the team what all happens. And he kind of was doing with Maki what Ochiai wants to do with Furuya. But here's the thing. Y'all pointed out that Mei is not a good comparison for this, for Ochiai's strategy, because Mei is not the lead pitcher he's not the sole player on Inashiro's team that is great. Inashiro has an amazing roster of players. They're stacked from top to bottom. So even though you can foster Mei as an ace, but you also have a really strong relief pitcher who is a third year, and you have a really strong team to back Mei up. So Inashiro wasn't a great comparison. Ochiai's strategy could become what Maki's team ended up being. The Maki's team, Maki was a really good pitcher, but he didn't really have any other team players that could follow up with what Maki was doing. And the same kind of went for Shunshin, too. Shunshin was fostered as an ace, but his team couldn't really help lift him up as well. And the same thing for Maki's team. Their team just didn't have players that could lift him up if you're going with that method, right? And I don't think Shunshin's coach was building Shunshin up as the sole player that was better than everybody else. I think Maki's team was more along those lines. But we got to see this season how that strategy doesn't work. And I don't think Ochiai's strategy is good because you have solid players. And I'm glad he made that note about Kuromochi being fast and being useful. It's like, yeah, you have players with a lot of potential. You can't just rely on Furuya alone. That's not going to work. And so I felt like Maki and Shunshin's teams were better examples of that strategy not working than Inashiro's. But yeah, there's also the fact of Ochiai being jealous of Kateoka. Because yeah, Kateoka's pretty selfless. He cares about his teammates, his team players. He cares about all of them. And he views them as a collective, as a team. He definitely has a soft spot for Sawamura because I think he sees a lot of himself in Sawamura. But he doesn't baby Sawamura, and he doesn't treat him any differently than anybody else on the team. He does give Sawamura, he likes to coach Sawamura one-on-one a little bit more than the other pitchers, but I think that's because he sees himself in Sawamura and sees how he can help in that regard. I don't think Kateoka feels the need to help Kawakami or Furuya because they've pretty much got things down. The things that they have to work on as pitchers are things that Kateoka can't really help them with. But with Sawamura, he feels like he can. So, yeah, Ochiai should be jealous of Kateoka. Kateoka's a great coach. And Sarah, I think you noted in the last set of episodes, or the one before that, yeah, some of Kateoka's methods are very traditional. They're maybe a little bit more outdated, and they maybe aren't as modern, perhaps, as they could be. But at the end of the day, Kateoka, he cares about his team, and he cares about the players, and he's dedicated to making sure they can be as strong as they can possibly be. Both as individuals, but then also to help out the team as a whole. So yeah, Ochiai should be jealous of him. And maybe Ochiai has some interesting strategies, but I don't think he should ignore Kateoka's coaching entirely. And I don't think he does, but in the future, I don't think he should. So yeah, the third years versus the first and second years. Furuya pacing himself versus going all out. Here's the thing. I've noticed this in this series too. When Furuya tries to pace himself, and I think that's Furuya's weakness. When he tries to pace himself or slow down, he has a lot of errors. He walks a lot of players, or he makes mistakes when he focuses too much. When he just goes all out from the start, he does really well. Because Furuya's kind of like just like an all or nothing pitcher. He either goes all out and it's great, or he holds himself back and he gets frustrated and he makes mistakes. So it's not just stamina that is Furuya's issue. It's that control and starting out the game and pacing himself. That's his biggest thing, I think. And I'm glad that Furuya has those weaknesses because nobody is perfect, right? And so I'm glad those are his weaknesses. Because Sawamura has weaknesses too. But that's what's important is that you need multiple pitchers, I think Sato does. They need to do the relay to have the best chances of going to nationals. They can't just rely on Furuya and be okay. But Tojo, oh my God, that moment that Tojo threw back to home and everybody's like, where'd that pitch come from? And it was from Tojo. And the moment with Jun, where Jun is like, don't you dare give up pitching. Don't you dare give up. That's one of my favorite moments from all the episodes. is because June, not that he gave up, but he realized he was better as a batter. The difference between June and Tojo is June, I think, realized that he wanted to be a pitcher, but he just doesn't have the innate talent and the potential to become a pitcher like Tamba and Kawakami and the others. He has the potential to be a really good batter, and that's where he ended up finding his strengths. Tojo, I think, got discouraged and gave up because he didn't think that he could match up to Furuya and Sawamura. But as we've seen in that one pitch, it's like, no, you have potential. Don't give up on that. And so that's why I get worried about Ochiai, because I'm like, I don't think Ochiai would give Tojo the time of day. But I think if Tojo nurtured that ability and started practicing more, he's only a first year too. So the idea that if Sato could have 3 third-year pitchers that were awesome by the time they were third years, that would be amazing. Obviously Kawakami is going to retire after next year. But if you could go into your third year and have Sawamura, Furuya, and Tojo as pitchers, that would be awesome. And then have a 4th pitcher if you needed them. But that'd be amazing. So I'm like, go with that strategy. But I love that June is like, don't give up. Masako got fat. Yeah, and he was eating rice balls in the dugout too. I almost thought it was Azuma at first because he gained all that weight. And everybody was like, oh, Masako, oh no. And he's like, and the thing of it is, he doesn't have Kuromochi to keep him in check, because when they were roommates, Kuromochi could be like, hey, don't eat that, or eat healthier, or go exercise. But he doesn't have Kuromochi around him anymore. So it's different. Yeah, I like the idea that Haruichi, we get little subtle things. Haruichi, he may not be able to read Sawamura the best, but he reads Furuya pretty well, which I like, because Furuya gets a little upset for a moment, and Haruichi reads him, and he's like, hey, are you okay? Something's wrong. And so I like that Haruichi kind of has that intuitive nature behind him, that he kind of can sense when things are up with the other players. And that moment that Kuromochi found out from June about Kataoka, and he went back to tell everyone, he was just sitting in the dugout. That was the one thing. Sawamura, he was like, hey, what's wrong, Kuromochi? We need to be cheering everybody on from the dugout. Come on. And he was trying to cheer him up. I have friends that are like this, and y'all probably do too, but there are some people that, especially if they're really big extroverts, like Sawamura's character, that they kind of, when other characters are at their lowest, they pick up the pieces and encourage them, right? It's when those characters get sad that things can get kind of desperate. Like with Sawamura, we're used to seeing him happy and go-getting all the time. So when we see him struggling, it's hard because he's usually the one to help pick others up, like he did with Kuromochi. He was trying to pick him up, even though he's going through the yips and all this other things. Sawamura stopped and saw Kuromochi was struggling and was like, hey, let's pick it up. It's okay. And I love that. I love that about Sawamura's character, that even when he's struggling, he wants to make sure that the other person is doing better than him. And I thought that was really, really cool. And then, man, Yuki's line to Miyuki at the end of episode 73, when he's like, you can't let them know if you're struggling. Don't look lost. If you look lost, the team will be lost. Like, that line of advice to Miyuki as a captain, he's like, you're going to have to step it up, and if you're struggling, you can't show it, because your team is going to be looking at you all the time to make sure that you're strong. And that cuts back to when they lost to Inashiro, and Yuki didn't cry. He didn't cry until he got to the bus and was by himself, and he thought nobody could see him. And Sawamura was the only one that could see him cry. And that's the only time he broke down. He stayed strong for his team the rest of the time. And I'm like, Yuki has all my praise. It's like he's such a boss. But him giving that captain advice to Miyuki, that was really, really good. So yeah, episode 74, they all know. It's all cats out of the bag. They all know. The question is, at this point, Kataoka does not know that they all know. Kataoka's still in the dark, that they're all aware. And so I think that they're going to keep it a secret to make it to nationals to keep him there, right? I think that's what's going to happen. But Miyuki's like, how do we make it up to the coach in the third years? We can't just quit now. Because for a while, they all look kind of dejected, and Miyuki's like, no, we got to pick it up. We got to do this. And everybody's kind of questioning Miyuki. They're like, how can you be calm right now? And it goes back to Miyuki taking Yuki's advice, but him also being like, look, it's not going to change anything. We just got to move forward and give the third year. The third years went out of their way to give us this game early, so we need to show up and do our very best. And I like in that moment that both Sawamura and Furuya at the same time simultaneously say that Kataoka's not acknowledged them yet. So we can't give up either. I love that. And the episode called Guiding Light. At first I thought it was Kataoka that was the guiding light, but no, it's Miyuki. Miyuki's the captain. He's the guiding light. He has to be the one to help lead them. And I like that Zono and Kanemaru and them are telling Furuya, they're like, you can't become an idiot. We have our original OG idiot Sawamura over here. It's like, I love it. I love it. But Tamba and Furuya, they were on fire this game. Once Furuya let up and quit pacing himself and just went all out, he was great. But Tamba was on a roll. And it's so sad because like they said in the episodes, Tamba has the best game ever and it doesn't count. It's like, of all of Tamba's luck. But I love that Tamba passed the entrance exam. He's going to the college. And he's like, I don't want to give up on baseball yet. And I like that. I like that Tamba's not given up yet. So it seems like Tamba and Chris are going to try to play professionally. And Masako and Azuma's playing professionally. I think they established that Yuki's not playing professionally yet. He turned down the offer because he wanted to go to college first. But maybe he's going to play in the college team while he's there. And then, yeah, the idea that they can't... Kateoka can't quit if we keep playing games, he can't quit yet, right? So, like, as long as we keep playing games, he can't stop coaching. So, he's got to coach us through to nationals. I don't know if that's true, though. I don't know if he's going to let them get to nationals and Oshiai would take over or how that would work. But in theory, that all seems very sound, right? And then Haruichi going to nationals for his brother. Yeah, so the idea that Haruichi... He's like, my brother and I will never go to nationals together in high school anymore, but I'll go in his place. And it all sounded good. It was really good, strong words. And then at the very end there, Rio catches his ball and he's like, you're not quite there yet, brother. I know your intention, but you're not quite there yet. So, I love that in that moment that Miyuki, he gets to base and he lets Kuromochi get home, that Yuki looks over to him and Yuki looks so proud. He's like, you're going to be an okay captain. You're going to be all right. It's going to work out for you. Kariba, I finally got his name. Kariba being the catcher with Sawamura. I really like the scene of them. Kariba seems like a really good character. I have a feeling he's not going to get to catch much because it's mainly going to be Miyuki, but I like him as a catcher, as a character in this. I like that him and Sawamura kind of get to bond behind the scenes. It reminds me a little bit of Mei and the new catcher he has. So, but if he's a first year too, that's good because next year, Miyuki will be a third year, and then after that, there'll be a year where Sawamura won't get to play with Miyuki. So it'll be cool having Kariba there to kind of take over. Like, that'll be nice. But yeah, Sawamura, bookending the episode with Sawamura saying at the midway point of episode 74, he's like, how can I be useful? I need to be useful for the team. And then at the very end, Miyuki calls back to that, like, are you going to be useful today or not? Like, I love that. They were, like, on the same wavelength. Like, dots were connecting, right? I love that. And the idea is that, yeah, Sawamura says, he's like, I may not be able to throw inside right now, but I have a pitch that Chris taught me. It's not that I don't know anything. He's like, I have something I can use, so I can be useful. So, yeah, we have there that at the bottom of the fifth inning, my brain went dead for a second. At the bottom of the fifth inning, Furuya came out for Kawakami. It seems like Furuya, on average, lasts until the fifth inning, and then he needs to be switched out, much to his chagrin. But yeah, once Furuya gets wore out, like once the battery's dead, it's like all over. So it's fair that they switch him out. And then Zono hitting the home run. Zono hitting the home run and having the blush and being so excited. I was so proud of Zono. I don't know what a pull hitter is. So y'all in the comments will have to comment and tell me what a pull hitter is. Because I don't... Jun... And this ties back to Jun and Zono practicing together. Jun's like, Zono, you're not like me. Jun's like, I have a batting style and I'm a certain type of batter, but you're different than me. So you can't do the same thing I did. You need to find your own style. And he's like, you're a pull hitter. Which it sounds like he just hits... Like he just drives it, like he has some force behind it. Whereas Jun is a little bit different. So I'm curious, if y'all can comment down below what a pull hitter is, that would be nice. But he's not like Jun. And Jun's like, I like this theme that the third years are their own entity and the first and second years don't need to try to be like them. Because they can't. They have to be their own players. And I think that's going to tie back to Haruichi. Haruichi has to be his own player. He can't be like his brother. Zono can't be like Jun. Miyuki cannot be like Yuki. I think Miyuki at the beginning of becoming captain is like, I'm not Yuki. How can I can't be the same presence. And it's like, no, but you can be your own presence. And you can still be a strong captain even if you're not the same as me. So I like that idea. And SAWAMURA going through the same thing. I'm not like Furuya. I'm my own pitcher. So it's them finding themselves. I feel like the theme of season 2 is them finding their place in themselves to separate and branch out from what the third years before were. I like that idea. And then I'm sorry, but Miyuki being like, are you going to be useful today or not? And then Chris subbing in. I didn't see it coming. I should have. It's the most obvious thing. I just thought, the thing of it is, I thought when Kataoka had that comment about Chris playing college ball and that his journey had only begun, I thought that that was a telltale sign that he was not going to play in this game because Kataoka didn't want him getting injured. But luckily that didn't happen. And yeah, Chris subbing in, I'm sure I fangirled. I don't remember. I'm sure I fangirled out of my seat because I was like, oh my God, this is happening. Is this real life? And then, yeah, so the 9th inning. So Kawakami pitched the 6th through the 8th inning, and then SAWAMURA came in for the last inning. And then it was all foreshadowed. I didn't even think about it, but it was all foreshadowed with Kanemaru way back in episode like 60, or maybe it was episode 70. I say way back. It was like 5 episodes ago. It feels like a long time ago. But when Kanemaru was asking Chris what to do about SAWAMURA, and Chris is like, oh, it'll be fine. He'll figure it out. And it all comes full circle with Kanemaru realizing like, oh, Chris is going to help him out of his funk. I love it. And then I like in the room with the manager and Ochiai, Ray sticking up for SAWAMURA. I'm so glad she said what she said then. She was like, I know that SAWAMURA had a bad game against Yukushi, but that's not always been the case. Like before Inashiro, SAWAMURA was pitching really good, and he just had a really bad game against Yukushi. And I'm glad she said that because Ochiai needed to hear that. He needed to hear her say that. And so I'm glad he got to see that. But it almost looks like in episode 75, it looked like Ochiai was looking for any excuse to take SAWAMURA out. He was like, well, he's only got this outside pitch. That's not going to be good for much. And I'm like, Furuya only has a fastball. I mean, he has a splitter, obviously, but I'm like, it just seemed like he was looking for any excuse against SAWAMURA in this episode. And there was a little moment towards the end when SAWAMURA was pitching really well that he was like, oh, like he had this like look of realization on his face. But Chris telling him like, you've been pitching offensively this whole time. Like you need to change up your repertoire. You need to have the ability to use both the inside and the outside pitch to have a lot of mix and match that you can use. And when he gets Chris out, that roar, that SAWAMURA roar, there's so many screenshots I took, right before I started this second part of the discussion. I just went back and took a bunch of screenshots, and there's so many of SAWAMURA. Like, I just needed to see our Sunshine Boy back and to see him, like, look confident, to not have them damn bags under his eyes, and to look confident and poised again. It's like the biggest breath of fresh air possible. And I love that roar when he got him out. Like, it was SAWAMURA back in action again. We're back in business, baby. And so, yeah, I love that Chris has that faith, too. He says, once you get your inside pitch back. Because here's the thing. There's that little lingering doubt. Like, is SAWAMURA going to get the inside pitch back? Or is he going to have the yips and he has to resort to only the outside pitch? Because he really only pitches outside the rest of the game. But Chris has faith in him. He's like, once you get your inside pitch back, you'll have all these different pitching options. It's like, I'm going to miss the third years, for the record, so much. This episode was like telling the audience, like, here's these great characters. They're off to do their own thing now, so... Because I'm going to miss Rio, I'm going to miss Masako, I'm definitely going to miss Jun, definitely going to miss Yuki, definitely going to miss Chris-senpai, definitely going to miss Tamba. I'm like, all these players are gone. It's really, really sad. But yeah... Kataoka was like, the game's not over, letting all the third year plays. And that's the thing. Ochiai says that none of the kids after they retired came back to see him. Well, no, because if you're only going to focus on one player out of 50 players, yeah, they're not going to come back. But Kataoka let every player play. It was their last game. He's like, everyone's going to get a chance to play. And Jun even got, I wish we got to see Jun pitch. We saw that one wobbly pitch and it was like, oh, but I wish we'd gotten to see Jun pitch more and to see Chris catch. But the fact that they got to do it is chef's kiss. I love it so much. Yeah. And then Ray and the manager and Katioka, them all having that moment they're in. I'm like, Ray, she was like talking up Katioka and how much faith he has in the team, what a great coach he is. I'm like, get your man, girl. Go after him. Like, at this point, I'm such a Ray Katioka shipper. I'm like, I don't see a ring on that finger, girl. I don't see a woman come to these games. If he leaves and retires, get you some, girl, because that's just, you know. And then the third year's won in the end by 1 run in the last inning. So I love that line from Yuki that he tells them. He's like, they have on the playbooks, practice makes permanent. And I like that line. But the line I like more is when Yuki's like, practice never lies. I love that line because if you've done competitive speech, if you've done any kind of competitive sport, anything, practice never lies. You can tell if somebody's practiced and you can tell if somebody hasn't. Because there's that muscle memory, there's that experience. It's so true. It's not saying, I don't like the line practice makes perfect because there's so many factors that can change that. You can practice all day long, right? And never be perfect. That's absolutely true. There are some people that practice a sport or something, they'll practice it all the time and they'll never perfect it. But the idea of practice never lies, you can still tell the experience they have and you can tell what they've gained from that practice the more that they've done it, even if they don't perfect something. So I love that line. And then at first, when the third years are all gathered and it's that sunset photo, it's like the end of an era, the sunlight and the lighting is all shining on them and it all goes like white in the background. It's like the perfect walking off into the sunset montage of our third years. They said, don't lose. And I was like, yeah, don't lose in the fall tournament. What motivation. And then there was that pause and Yuki's like, don't lose like we did. And I was like, arrowed. Just an arrow to my heart. I was like, oh man, that was a gut punch. A gut punch of feels. It was just too much. That was just so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking. It was just so much. But they really hammered home in that last part of episode 75 just how influential the third years have been, like what a big part of this series they've been, and the fact that they're gone, that this was them walking away to go do their own thing. And I'm sure in the series we're going to cut back to them periodically. Like we'll see what Tomba's up to, see what Yuki's up to, see what Jun and the others up to. I'm sure that we'll touch base on them as the series goes on and just catch up with what's going on in their lives. But the fact, especially Chris-senpai, I feel like Chris, we're going to catch up with him the most out of all of them. I feel like it seems to set up that Chris and Tamba are the main ones that we're going to catch up with the most because it sets up their futures right now. Like, I don't know what Jun's doing. We don't know what Rio is doing. We kind of know what Yuki's doing. So I feel like we may touch base with Yuki, but I feel like with Tamba and Chris, we're going to touch base with them more. And maybe Masako and Azuma. But it felt so surreal, and it felt like a definitive end to the third years, them like walking off into the sunset. But yeah, but the past is over, right? Sawamura says we can't focus on the past. We got to move forward. And so I like the idea of this drawing. So the idea of the drawing of them picking numbers, and that's how they're going to face each other. So Yakushi was number 41, and this other team was number 29, and then Sato ends up being number 17, which is interesting. So it seems like on the surface, Sato and Yakushi are going to be like on opposite sides of the bracket, which here's the thing. If they make nationals, if Sato makes it to nationals for the spring, there's a chance they could face Yakushi again. Because I'm sure Yakushi is going to advance to nationals. I have no doubt. The teams that I'm like Yakushi and Inashiro, I feel like they're going to advance to nationals. And we just don't know about Sato. But yeah, this was a great set of episodes, and my heart is full. I can't tell you how happy I am that we got Sawamura back. Yeah. The only thing is Kateoka doesn't know that they know, and Ochiai doesn't know that they know, and we've got this fall tournament coming up. I feel like this game refreshed our team and gave them a new start, but now going into season 2, what we're going to do with that. So I'm curious to see the bracket. I want to see the team bracket, but like I said, I'm going to watch the OVAs next, and then watch episodes. I'm going to watch episodes 1 through 3 on my own, and I'll review them when we start season 2 and just review over them. And then we'll start with episodes 4 and do 4, 5, and 6. Or maybe just 4 and 5. I don't know. It depends. I'll see where I'm at in reacting to it, and I'll kind of measure it out with the season. But yeah, y'all. This first season, I can't believe I'm a whole season through Ace of the Diamond. It took us several months. It took several months since the summer. I think I started in July, and it's November now. So I felt like I've gone through the summer tournament with our boys. We started in the summer. We had July, August, September, October, and now we're into November. I feel like I've spent the last 5 months with these boys and this team, and it's kind of surreal that we're starting season 2. But I love this series, and it's like it's such an emotional punch, and it just gets you at the right moment, and it's like, Haikyuu and It are definitely my favorite sports anime right now, for sure. I feel like Haikyuu's a lot shorter than this series, so I'd have to say, I couldn't say for sure until I see seasons 2 and season 3. I don't want to say for sure my total feelings, but I'm just glad our Sunshine Boy is back and got to pitch against Chris. I want to go back and rewatch that episode. I may, as soon as I get done with this, go back and rewatch episode 75 because it's so damn good. What a season finale. That was just chef's kiss. So I'm curious to know what you all thought of that episode, what you all thought of episodes 75, 74, and 73. Feel free to give your thoughts down below. But yeah, OVAs are next, and then we're going to hit the ground running with season 2. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week, in a few days, with OVAs, and then next week with season 2 of Ace of the Diamond.